Good afternoon and welcome back to our live sessions at the 2021 Fall Meeting hosted by the National Defense Transportation Association and U.S. Transportation Command. Thank you for joining us. I'm Captain John Perkins and I'm joined by Major General Heidi Hoyle. She is the commander of the Army's Military Surface Deployment and Distribution Command, or SDDC. Ma'am, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John. I tell you, there's a lot of words in our title and the acronym soup that we work in, but essentially, if you want to break this down in the most simplest sense, SDDC is here to keep the Army and the Joint Force on the move. So day-to-day operations, moving unit cargo, moving sustainment stocks from where it exists in the United States, continental United States, and getting it out to the forts and the foxholes that the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines need to use for the equipment to fight our nation's wars and to accomplish the objectives of our combatant commanders.
Well, ma'am, SDD supports the Army as well as U.S. Transportation Command. So I just kind of want to ask you, in the joint realm, how does SDD support TRANSCOM?
Yeah, so SDDC is both an ASCC, the Army Service Component Command, to U.S. Transportation Command, and we're also a major subordinate command of Army Materiel Command. And so we have two higher headquarters that we use to execute our mission set. It's fascinating as we get to execute all of the surface movements for United States Transportation Command. We also consider ourselves as the connective tissue for U.S. Transportation Command, right? We've got approximately 85% of the joint force that's in the continental United States and needs to execute overseas deployment missions. So as Air Mobility Command moves via aircraft and Military Sea Lift Command moves via the ships and vessels, we are the critical piece that's linking the connective tissue together.
Now, ma'am, if I could go a little bit further in SDDC's mission, the one thing that I've learned a little bit is SDDC takes the Army from bases and garrisons, moves them to ports, loads them on ships. And I guess what I was really struck is how much the Army really works from ports. If you could give us a little bit more about how the Army moves, how SDDC moves the Army to the ports and then gets the equipment from the trains into the ships and so on, because I'm fascinated by that. And as someone who's been in the Navy for 24 years, I would have never thought to see the U.S. Army at ports loading ships.
So, John, that brings us to why we're here today,
Sure.
right? So the Military Surface Deployment Distribution Command is only 2,600 strong.
Oh, wow.
And when we execute large-scale combat operations, we bring in our reserve component partners, the Deployment Support Command, doubling us in size to about 5,200, and so able to execute large-scale wars. But from that's not very much, right? If you think of global operations, 5,200 people, that is a significantly small chunk, especially with the distribution of how we need to be across the globe. And so what we then do is we are enabled by our industry partners to the point that we call them our fourth component, right? You got Compo 1, Compo 2, Compo 3, as you're talking about the active component, the reserve component. Our industry partners are our Compo 4. And they are a piece of what gets us able to conduct our mission, and it's incredible.
Now, ma'am, you mentioned our industry partners, and we're here at the fall meeting, which is one of the goals is to bring the military and the industry together to kind of look at the challenges that are out there and how best we can move forward to accomplish national security objectives. You had the opportunity to host a Surface Transportation Academy, so I kind of wanted to ask, what is the benefit for SDDC to be here and participate in the fall meeting?
Well, it's really, quite frankly, to understand the challenges that each of us have, right? Industry to us and us to industry. We've been operating under a global pandemic, but the Army doesn't stop moving.
That's right.
The Joint Force hasn't stopped moving. And so unless we can do that with our partners and understand how we interact together, it's not going to happen. And so, we've discovered that, there's a lot of things that we're working through this week, right? What's happening holistically still with the pandemic, what's happening with the executive order to get vaccinations. I mean, you name it. These are the descriptions of the conversations that we've been having. Think about what's happening at some of our ports in California, right? The congestion that is out there, the Port of Savannah, it's happening at container terminals, and so, not a significant impact to unit moves and what SDDC does. But we are understanding all of those labor shortages that our industry partners are having to be able to come back to SDDC and make better informed decisions.
Well, ma'am, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, John. Have a great day.
Thank you. As we wrap up the 2021 fall meeting, please join me one last time when I talk to Colonel Joe Stefanik. He is the Director of the Defense Personnel Property, which is responsible for moving families from location to location. And I'm sure most people will want to listen on where we're going in not only this year, but into the future. Also, please follow U.S. Transportation Command on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. See you at 1400. Or excuse me, see you at